Hello and welcome to News in Depth here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Lithuania is racing to build domestic munitions capacity, negotiating a second Rheinmetall plant as the first ready to production in 2027, while Central Europe doubles down on defence industry growth. At the same time, US state election upsets send a political warning to the Trump administration, and Elon Musk's inflammatory comments about Britain have sparked backlash over misinformation. Joining us is Matthew Day to unpack the security, political and information risks behind these stories. Matthew, welcome back. Good to see you, as always.
As always, happy to be back as well. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time. So we've got three stories to cover today. Let's kick off with a soundbite and then we'll launch from there.
OK.
We also are ready to provide security to our allies. All for one, one for all. We will do whatever is needed to protect our freedom and the values that we share. Lithuania stands ready to take part in the collective defense with pride and confidence. With more than 5% of GDP to be spent on national defense next year, we are eager to build the shields that protect us all.
OK, so that was the president of Lithuania. There's a second plant being negotiated between Rheinmetall and the Lithuanian government for the production of munitions. What's going on? What's this big push? Because it's not just Lithuania, it's other Baltic states as well who are building up their capacity for arms manufacturing. What's going on?
Well, actually, you'll find it's all the way across Central Europe. I think Rheinmetall, they have a plant coming online or will be built in Romania and one in Bulgaria as well. And what's going on, it basically reflects the fact that Europe is not producing enough munitions, particularly artillery shells and also the explosives that goes into these artillery shells. The European defence sector had many years of being downgraded because of the years of peace. It was structured incorrectly in a way that you had just-in-time delivery construction, which is already good, but it doesn't mean you can't
you don't have
flex.
the stockpiles with. Yeah.
So Europe is now ill-prepared to fight a sustained war. What's going on in Ukraine has taught us that we need to produce a lot of things, particularly artillery shells. And at the moment, our industrial base does not have that capacity. So we're trying to change that ASAP as quickly as we can, which is why we have the plants, Rheinmetall plant being built in Lithuania and other ones in Bulgaria. I think in Rheinmetall, they also initiated construction of which will be Europe's biggest munitions plant in its home country, Germany, which I was reading that when it comes online in 2027, we'll be able to produce 350,000 artillery shells a year, which is a lot.
Which is a lot, it certainly is. But I mean, what struck me was that, traditionally, yes, OK, we've had the peace dividend, everyone's kind of wound down their arms and munitions production in Europe. But the Baltic, you expected most of this manufacturing to be happening in the big countries, yes, the Germanys, the Polands and so on. But the Baltic states seem to have really stepped up. And we just heard the president talking about 5% of GDP on defence and so on. Is there something special that we should think about or note or understand about the Baltic states and their more aggressive or proactive approach in this area?
Well, I think that their approach reflects a rather vulnerable geopolitical situation. They are stuck out, they're caught between Russia and the deep blue sea. So therefore they need to produce stuff. And also when you think about the logistical chains, to get, for the Baltic states in particular, to get ammunition, to get equipment there, it can take a long time. So they're probably thinking it is far better to have production on site in the country where it is needed. So if a worst-case scenario develops, they can immediately produce and fire. They don't have to rely on getting equipment or shells.
Right, the long
made in
supply
Germany
chains
or
and
in
so on.
France or in the UK.
Right. I mean, what does this say generally about the European posture and the posture of the Baltic states, both to Russia, but also to NATO?
Well, I think the Baltic states and also other countries in the region, for example, Poland, I think they regard themselves as setting the agendas, as a good example of what other NATO countries should be like as well. They are committing a lot of their national budget towards defence, and they are saying that if we can do it, so other countries can do it as well. You have a huge spectrum of NATO states. Some spend an awful lot, like the Baltic states do, per capita of GDP, of course, we're talking about, while others further away from Ukraine, such as Spain, which has been highlighted by President Donald Trump as an underperformer, spend very little. So I think the Baltic states and other countries within the region, including Poland, of course, regard themselves as examples which other NATO countries should follow.
Right, so they're the standard, basically.
They are the standard bearers.
Yeah, certainly. Now, one thing, we've been hearing over the last couple of years a lot about Russia's hybrid warfare, the use, the stealing of data and so on using technology. What are the risks that countries like Lithuania face in terms of losing secrets or even sensitive information which would help or would benefit Russia? I mean, does it make these countries more vulnerable, is my point.
These countries, they are vulnerable, particularly because of their proximity to Russia and to Belarus as well, which will act on behalf of Russia. But I don't think we should regard them as being a security risk or something like that, because in this day and age of computer hacking, of cyber warfare, the United States could be equally as vulnerable as Lithuania to a very well-trained and a very astute computer hacker. They can access, they can process things. And in fact, in some ways, if you look at it like maybe the Baltic states are more aware of these threats than other
and perhaps
NATO
better
countries,
prepared.
and better prepared because they're acutely aware. Because the risk is so much higher for them.
Right.
They feel it every day. Russia is right next door, or Russia is always talking this rather imperialistic language to maybe just take them back.
Right.
They feel it far more, while a country 1,000 miles away won't feel it, and maybe they'll feel a bit more. They'll be a bit more lackadaisical in their security matters, and when it comes to making sure that everything is secure, particularly from cyber attacks.
Right, let's move on now to the United States. We've had some local elections going on. We've had elections in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York. Give us the big picture first.
The big picture. Well, I think most of the attention has been on New York, where you had this very colourful, very different candidate, and now he is going to be mayor of New York as well. And this is Mr. Zohran Mamdani, just to make sure I get his pronunciation correct. And he's a Muslim. He wasn't born in the United States, which has set him apart immediately. And he calls himself a democratic socialist, I believe, but to the American right, he's the radical left. He's a communist. And he has really kind of ruffled feathers in the American.
I want to talk about those feathers in just a second. There's a soundbite I'd like to share with you on Zohran Mamdani and get your take on it.
Mamdani would have a hard time winning in most places in the United States. And that's where Sherrill in New Jersey, Governor-elect Sherrill, and Governor-elect Spanberger in Virginia come in. They're moderates. So the parties are smart enough to run people in states and localities and congressional districts that can actually win those places and reflect the values of those places. So Mamdani will be the face of the Democratic Party if Democrats don't fight that. That's what Republicans intend to do.
So that was Larry Sabato. He's professor of politics at University of Virginia. So what I understood him to be saying was Mamdani was a right man for New York City, but he wouldn't have done terribly well anywhere else in the States. What does that mean, do you think?
Well, I think because of Mamdani's background, he is a sort of right fit for a city. Of course, New York is the melting pot. It's the Big Apple. It's where people come to from all over the world. And his background reflects that. And of course, when you hear him speak, he speaks to these people as well. He, like in his victory speech, he was talking about the Somali cab driver, the people from Uzbekistan, the waiter from another country. And he was appealing to them. And they're the people who go to New York. They're the people who go there to start afresh. You know, the kind of pulling power of New York.
Right, so immigrants are kind of, or people of immigrant descent are supporting him.
Yeah, they're part of the New York's culture. They're part of New York City's fabric. Well, if you look at the Democratic victory, say like in Virginia, you had very much more, shall we say, conservative, old-school Democrats winning, who look completely different.
Right.
So the Democrats have chosen their candidates carefully and well, and it appears to have been a success, judging from the results.
Right, so Mamdani's base, you just outlined, but I get the impression they're young as well, the young, white Americans, non-immigrants, or not recent immigrants anyway. What is it about him that appeals to that group, do you think?
Well, I think he appeals to... He's willing to address their concerns. For example, like housing is a perennial issue. And he wants to build more social housing. He said, we're going to build this. And he wants to introduce rent freezes. And if you're a young person, you're trying to get onto the property ladder or something like that, that's appealing to you. That's the kind of things that you want. Or if you're a young person struggling with rising living costs, rising healthcare costs, he's also talking about introducing free public transport. That's another good thing as well. These are policies which appeal to young people who want to get out into the world, maybe eventually buy a property or something, but they need the money, they need the financial resources. Right. And he's sort of offering a way out. And also, I think in a way as well, he's appealing almost in a kind of like in a Trumpian-like way to people who feel that they've been neglected by the mainstream political establishment, neglected by previous, the rulers of New York, people who've just been forgotten about, much like Trump did when he was running for presidency, for the second time around. Of course, who they're appealing to is completely different. Trump was appealing to, say, like the white working class, blue-collar groups of people dotted around the country, while Mamdani, he's appealing to young voters, immigrant voters, particularly first-time voters as well. Different class, but the same sort of people who might feel resented because they feel they've been ignored and let down by the establishment. Right.
I mean, of course, we shall wait and see how all of these will be paid for by Mamdani, and let's see how they work. Moving on now, Elon Musk. It seems to put his foot in it again. We have a short soundbite that I'd like to share with you. Let's see what you have to say about that.
These lovely small towns in England, Scotland and Ireland, they've been living their lives quietly. They're like hobbits. In fact, J.R.R. Tolkien based the hobbits on people he knew in small-town England. They're lovely people who, you know, smoke their pipe and have nice meals. And everything is pleasant, the hobbits in the Shire. The reasons they've been able to enjoy the Shires is because hard men have protected them from the dangers of the world. But since they have no exposure to the dangers of the world, they don't realize they are there. And so one day, 1,000 people show up in your village of 500 and start raping the kids. This has now happened, God knows how many times in Britain.
There is so much to unpack in that.
Yes.
What hits you first?
I think we should, well, I look at it in two ways. One way is sort of kind of a bit funny that he's comparing people like me to a hobbit. I don't have hairy feet or anything like that. But then it's actually quite serious. And he's saying that we're sort of naive, these sort of whimsical people just living our quiet lives in the countryside.
It's a bit patronising.
It is, and it's completely unrealistic. It's detached from reality. But then the serious point is that he's saying that all these people are, because we're naive and because we've let our guard down, these people are nasty, dangerous people from outside and going to come in and rape our children. That is a fairly outrageous thing to say. Like, there are no examples of that, like when lots of people just arrive in a village and commit child rape on a huge scale. That has not happened. And what Musk is saying is completely, well, it's not true.
So where's this coming from?
It's basically a lie.
Where's all this coming from? I find it difficult to understand.
Well, Musk has seems to have a fixation, maybe, or maybe if I was a supporter of Musk, says he's making a good point, maybe that the British establishment has ignored, that he has focused an awful lot in the past few months or even years on. There was an ongoing scandal in the UK about grooming gangs that operated in English northern towns. They focused all their attention mainly on white working-class English children.
And they were of Pakistani
descent. And there were failings in the social services, in the police. And apparently some of these failings were due to people who were rather hesitant to confront these gangs or investigate these gangs because of their ethnic background. Musk has focused on that intently. He's interfered an awful lot. And this seems to be his particular grievance that he has. Some people, I should point out, some people in Britain welcome his interference or welcome his words, but he has got a reputation for going way beyond the mark. And I think with this Hobbit quote and claim that English and Welsh, Scottish villages are being descended on by people from the outside and start raping kids in their hundreds is completely untrue. I was reading that Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's former and rather fearsome spin doctor, called Musk sick and dangerous, which gives you an impression about how passions run high when these sort of comments are made. It is, but I should point out, it is a very, very sensitive subject. It is a very hot political subject within the UK at the moment.
And in many countries, migration is an issue.
Yeah. But in Britain now we have the rise of Nigel Farage's party, Reform UK, and it's doing very well. And one of its key points, the nail that he really likes to hammer home quite regularly, is on migration and the alleged or the perceived threat that migrants pose to the indigenous population. That is a thing that is recurring all the time now in the UK. People, it does have a receptive audience, but also people accuse Farage and, of course, at the same time, Elon Musk of exaggeration, distortion, fabrication and lies.
Well, unfortunately, Matthew, we're going to have to end it there. But as always, thank you very much for sharing your analysis with
Thank you
our
very much.
audience.
Very happy to be here.
Thanks, Matthew. And that brings us to the end of this episode of News in Depth. Don't go away, though, lots more coming up. Goodbye.